Texas, ready for migrant border rush, governor says. So we've had the election. Trump won resoundingly, even took the popular vote. So Trump, but we're in Joe Biden's America until January. So a lot of these illegal immigrants that are going to come through the southern border that are en route, that have been working their way through Mexico, you're going to have a ton of those folks coming up looking to get in before Trump makes his changeovers. Are we going to have a massive, massive rush? I don't think so. Because the way that happens, it happens in these big groups, and you've got maybe 2,000-3,000. And in our most recent example of that, and we're going to show one of the groups, half of them ditched out when they found out, half of them that were en route ditched out when they found out that Trump won. Because they're like, oh my gosh, he's told us that we're basically going to, have mass deportations. He's going to tighten things up. Well, let's get into it. What is actually going to happen? Here are my predictions. Let's go on this podcast. Troops train amidst worries of post-election mass migration attempts. The folks that are en route now are ones that have waited this long. If you really wanted to get in, you would have got in during 2023. But life has different circumstances. Maybe you just had a baby and you're in Honduras or Venezuela or Colombia or somewhere, and you're like, I can't travel with a little baby. Maybe we go now. It's going to be a few months before Trump gets in. And even when Trump gets in, even though he said it's not a matter of money, we're going to do mass deportations, what he's going to do is he's going to drop the hammer on groups like Tren de Aragua. He's going to drop the hammer on anybody in the United States that's been convicted of a crime. He's going to go after, and you're going to have deportations, but you're going to have deportations of people that should be deported, that should have never been allowed in the United States. Does he deport 1 million? I don't even think he deports that. Maybe 500,000. Even the logistics on that are difficult to fathom, because you've got economics, you've got, these people are working in the U.S. oftentimes. They're contributing, some of them aren't initially when they come here, but the logistics of that, and Trump will figure it out. He'll figure it out. But what Trump will do is he will get that remain in Mexico going again. He'll call up Mexico and go, hey, you got to change this up. He will continue building the wall because that was his thing, even though everybody said it was racist. He will work back policies like the parole policy, which is meant for people coming from Ukraine that have had their homes bombed. And those folks coming to the United States, they need to be paroled into the United States, and so they can kind of get their lives going. But with all these illegals that have come from Central and South America, the Biden administration did the exact same thing and basically abused a policy in a way that should have not ever been used. My dead son, Brennan, is a result of some of that, because he took drugs that he thought were another thing. He thought they were Xanax, and they weren't, and it killed him. And they came up through the southern border, and it's because we've had such a porous border that this kind of thing has happened. Now, most of the folks that are coming up through the southern border, you got Colombia, you got Ecuador, you got Honduras, you got Venezuela. Here's my prediction. Those people are all pretty heavy Catholics. They're also very pro family. That's why they're leaving their countries right now in droves, because leadership in their countries is you got gangs overrunning their countries. Now, when they come in the United States, they get set up. They become part of the status quo. Which way will they vote? Ask yourself that. Just hard question. Which way will they vote? Now they've got a piece of the American pie. And they don't believe in abortion. They're Catholic. Yeah, they ain't voting Democrat. They're voting Republican, because now they're in. They're here. They're in. And they're conservative by nature. They're religious. They're more religious than most white people. So try that one on for size. But hey, Sleepy Joe, appreciate the 20 million you drove into the country, but they ain't voting for Democrats because they got them in. They're just not, because their life values, their family values dictate otherwise. All right. Governor Greg Abbott says Texas is ready to repel any mass immigration attempts should migrants attempt to rush its borders before the Trump administration takes office. The worst of that already happened March of 2023. It got super bad December of 2023. During that time period, you saw the most people come through, just in droves. The governor's office has posted video of Texas National Guard troops assigned to the Operation Lone Star border security mission conducting crowd control training near the border wall. Let's take a quick video. Here's in case we've kind of forgotten what that looks like and what we're trying to avoid. Nope, this is a video of one of the groups that has left southern Mexico and is on its way north. And they're traveling in groups of between 2,000 and 4,000 people because there's strength in numbers. They don't want their, people to get picked off to human trafficking and sex trafficking and all that stuff. So let's watch this.
Tonight, hundreds of miles south of the border in Mexico, a caravan of migrants chanting, "We are not criminals," is rushing to make it to the U.S.-Mexico border before the Trump administration is sworn in. Many carrying their belongings in plastic bags and on their backs, and already starting to voice their fears about not being able to cross into the United States come January.
Mucho más complicado.
"I think it will be much more complicated now," says this man who's traveling from Venezuela. "Now we are thinking about finding a way to get through before Trump takes the presidency." DHS officials telling NBC News that they have not yet seen a surge in migrants heading to the United States, but that they want CBP and ICE officials to be prepared.
One of the first calls I'm going to make is to Mexico. You stop letting people come in through our border.
Trump now vowing to deport millions of undocumented migrants, saying his plan has, quote, "no price tag." He's also threatening to impose a tariff of 25% on Mexican imports unless Mexico's government curbs what he describes as an onslaught of immigration. Those promises now creating uncertainty and anxiety among migrants making the taxing journey. This caravan, which set off with nearly 3,000 people on Election Day, has dwindled to just about half of its original size, according to Reuters.
Que sea la voluntad de Dios.
This man from Venezuela saying now that Trump has won, he doesn't know what to do, but returning to Venezuela for him is like being shot in the head. Migrants in Mexican border cities waiting for legal entry through the CBP-1 program now also worried their plans might be upended.
¿Qué va a pasar con nosotros si nos van?
Some, like this woman, are anxious that the appointments they've waited months for under the CBP-1 program could be canceled.
Él inició la conversación felicitándome.
On Friday, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum saying she had a, quote, very friendly phone call with Trump in which they congratulated each other's presidential wins and said there will be time in the future to discuss the border issue. Time that many migrants now fear is running out for them.
You enjoy this content? Love to have you check out reasonabletv.com. We have got such stories as over 100 robbers ransack and destroy Oakland Mini Mart after mayor says crime is dropping. Yeah, that scene, the video on that was so violent that we are not able to show that on, other channels. What's that going to cost you? It's going to cost you less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, right? Or even McDonald's. I don't know. $3.99 a month. I mean, what costs less than $3.99 a month now? A bunch of items at Trader Joe's, or $39.99 a year. Get a 14-day trial. Check it out. You won't be disappointed. Ton of extra content there. Thanks in advance for supporting. The rest of the interview went on to debate whether Trump's actually going to, deport that many. Trump isn't going to deport millions of people right off the bat. That's just not going to happen because the logistics to make that happen are super expensive and horrific and would impact the economy. Somebody's going to tell Trump, hey, I know what you said, and I know you said that. And what Trump will do is he will focus on the criminals. And that's, the criminal element is a small percentage of who is in the country, but they're creating so much havoc and, human trafficking, sex trafficking, drugs, all of that. Tren de Aragua, percentage wise of the illegals coming in, they are a super small percentage, but Trump's going to focus on that. He's going to give law enforcement the rein to focus on that. And he's going to drop the hammer on these sanctuary cities that aren't turning folks over to Customs and Border Protection. He's going to drop the hammer and he's going to make it known, hey, no more of that. You guys need to buck up. And if you got a criminal in your state, if you got a criminal that's, done 10 crimes and you haven't turned him over, we're no longer, homie, don't play that game anymore. Got to give you that view. If the Texas troops are called upon to respond to any attempts to rush its borders with Mexico, it won't be the first time that force has been necessary to repel such an attempt. On March 21st, 2024, Texas National Guardsmen were called upon to block a migrant mob who rushed a border crossing point in El Paso. We saw the video of that. I mean, they rushed kind of a secondary border deal. They got caught up in razor wire. It was just this debacle. But when it came down to it, they're rushing to get into the country because, they feel like their chances are slim to none, and they've got the numbers. They got 500 people in this group. We're going to come and rush your border wall. Well, they're met there with National Guard, So the logistics of a mass 8 million, 10 million people exodus, not happening. It's just not happening. I know everybody wants that to happen, but if you actually think about the implications of that, we've got way better places to place our resources to. So Trump said that because he knew that's what kind of thing would get him elected. It worked. But he was going back on his word, Sean. Well, Trump says a lot of stuff. If you haven't noticed. Yeah. Anyway, nor was that an isolated incident. On August 8th, 2023, a migrant mob in Matamoros, Mexico, tried to rush an international bridge in Brownsville. You've had a bunch of that. These are people that have, gone through the Darien Gap. They're finally getting so close to getting into the United States that they're just like, F it, we're going in. You know what I mean? And I don't blame them. I don't blame them a bit. What I do blame is the Biden administration for opening up the southern border, opening up the borders so hard that they allowed just massive amounts of fentanyl in to kill people like my son Brennan. I blame them for that, right? Because odds are, if we wouldn't have had this new thing called fentanyl that gets mixed up in chemicals in China and then sent to the, crime organizations in Mexico and then gets brought through the cartel across the border because it's so porous, that's the downside for me that I can't live with. And Trump will. He had that closed up before. He'll work on getting that done. So the parole, he'll shit can that, the use of that. Remain in Mexico. He's already talked about that. He will deport some of the bad guys. He will unwind some of the 94 executive actions that Sleepy Joe Biden put in place that just opened this up. But hey, Sleepy Joe, appreciate all those voters that down the road, once they get their piece of the American pie, they're gonna vote Republican because they are inherently conservative. It's not going to be who got them in. It's who's going to be the best for them at that point in their lives. And they're not going to go, you know what? Defunding the police makes a lot of sense. This whole abortion thing, we need to really focus on that. They're focused on having babies. They're focused on bringing their babies into the United States because it's the best country in the world to have them in. That's why they're walking from who knows where, just absolute mind-blowing circumstances for them to get here. And they're doing their thing. While elsewhere along the border, construction crews hired by the state of Texas continue to expand the border wall. Texas had to make a stand because the Biden administration was so bad. Now our border czar, Kamala Harris, spends $1 million on her election and fails miserably. If that doesn't tell you as an indicator of what she would have been like as president, I don't know what does. She is terrible. Tampon Tim is even more terrible on a slightly different note. right? He's just running around going like this. I mean, what a weirdo. States built over 35 miles of new border wall inland of the river, north of its shared border with Mexico. You know, a lot of what's going on right now is Mexico, basically because Joe Biden decided to call up Mexico and go, hey, the number of illegals coming into the country right now, it's not looking good. It's a bad look. The optics for me right now coming into this election are terrible. Apparently, who knew? But the American people don't like having millions of illegals jammed down their throats in their communities, even if they are God-fearing people. You know, aside from all the Tren de Aragua and the criminals that have been dumped out of the Venezuelan prisons, now we have to address that. That has happened. And where'd they go? Estados Unidos. Right? I mean, why wouldn't they come here? We've made it the perfect land of opportunity for their criminal element. Trump will drop the hammer on that. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. Whereas Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, I mean, they were just literally head up ass in that department, right? Right? And so when Joe Biden called up Mexico and said, hey, I need you to help me out, Mexico is literally folks that make it on that path, a couple thousand miles north, you get towards our southern border, Mexico's northern border, they're being deported back to the beginning, down by Guatemala. Hey, we're going to need you to do that run again. And some of these people are doing that run 4 or 5 times. And guess what? They're getting tired and they're going home. And that's why you haven't seen the huge numbers at the border. I don't think it's because of Governor Greg Abbott in Texas really fortifying the wall. He has done an amazing job of that. No questions asked. I went down there and I live streamed from cartel country, right? Just across the border. And I'm waving hi to the military from Mexico and they're waving hi to me. And we're trying to do, you know, some translations, and my Spanish apparently wasn't quite as good as I thought it was. It's terrible. It's terrible. I took Spanish in high school and I haven't used it since. So, you know, Donde el baño? You know, that kind of thing. But me being able to live stream from that side of the border in early 2024, that was the story because it had been so overrun with Joe Biden's. But that's another one of Kamala Harris's accents, by the way. She had 4 or 5 during her campaign. I wonder if she had people that taught her the accent. Hey, can I need you to talk to this group of people here with your slightly different accent? And I'm sure it'll work out. And we're going to need you to go on Club Shay Shay, the podcast. It should work out great. That I think she got 1.5 million views there. And then we're also going to have you go on Call Her Daddy, you know, home of the Gluck Gluck 9000. Because that's your skill set is, it's right down that alley. Downtown Willie Brown. Need I say any more? So are all of the things that Trump is saying he's going to do? No, they're not going to happen. But enough of them are going to happen where this issue goes back to the way it was when Trump was president in 2016 through 2020. We had some of the lowest numbers of illegal immigration. We still had people coming in, but at a rate where we could vet them and see who they were and make sure that they were okay. That has not been happening under the Biden administration. And for that reason, let's go, Brandon. All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.